We're talking tipping on the programme today, and there's a very controversial article that's appeared in the press. This is all from journalist Chris Haslam, who says, "I don't leave tips, and neither should you. The culture of tipping degrades workers and customers. There's something irredeemably nasty about tipping," he says. "Slipping a folded fiver into a twitching palm has the sordid undertone of submission to an act of extortion." Might be going slightly over the top, but do you get what he means? 0345 900 5949. Steve's on Twitter today. "I don't mind tipping at a restaurant, but only if one person serves me from start to finish." Oh, interesting point. Actually, you do get that a lot, don't you? Of people, suddenly a different server turns up, a different waiter or waitress halfway through. And Sarah on text has shared her story. Thank you, Sarah. "During my time as a barmaid, the tips left solely were given to the kitchen staff because they were all underpaid and young. Therefore, I never leave tips because I feel it would not compliment the correct person, i.e. the chef. I felt all my hard work to please customers wasn't appreciated by the owner, as I was paid the minimum wage and wasn't allowed to receive tips. Yet the young kitchen staff, on £4.50 an hour in total, the tips worked out that they were on more money than me, and all their job was to wash the plates and take the food out. Even if I was offered a drink, I refused because it went into other people's pockets. Tips can be used maliciously, and I would never leave a tip unless I received excellent service, and then I'd personally tip the person who was responsible." Sarah, there we go. It sounds like a lesson hard learnt for her. But if you want to share us on the text your experience of tipping, do you always tip? Do you only tip certain people? Do you only tip when it's been really good service? Which then begs the question, shouldn't we get really good service all the time? First word Bristol, please, on your text, and 81333. Grant Harrold joins us, who's an etiquette expert, and more than that, has actually been a royal butler. Tell us about your butlering then, Grant.
Good morning, Vernon. I've been a butler for about 17 years.
Yes, who did... I love the word buttle. Who did you buttle for?
I think the most famous would be probably the Prince of Wales.
Really? Wow. Where was that?
Yeah.
Was that Highgrove or?
Yeah, it was Highgrove and around the UK. So it was quite a good experience.
Right. Do people? I've no idea. I've never been served by a butler. I'm just wondering whether people tip a butler. Is that the done thing?
You do.
Do you?
It's quite funny because people have been obviously talking this subject for the last couple of days, and they always miss out the fact that butlers or housekeepers do get tipped, and it originally started off in private homes a few hundred years ago.
I've never seen anybody tip them in Downton Abbey, though.
Well, I'm sure Carson's very discreet. I'm sure you don't even notice. He's so professional. You wouldn't even blink an eyelid.
It's very. Although, of course, he's a family butler, I suppose. Because you wouldn't tip within the family, would you? I suppose.
Well, not really. I mean, if you did an event or something for a member of the family, then say one of the children or something, they might want to give you a small tip or something. But again, as you say, it's quite unusual. It's more if there's visiting guests coming into the home for the day or for the weekend.
Can I be really rude? What was the biggest tip you were ever given?
The biggest tip. Somebody asked me.
It's not a very gallant question, that, is it? Really?
Well, it's an interesting one because I honestly can't really remember. I mean, tips for butlers can average between anything from £20 to £50 to £60 and up. I even know one or two butlers that got quite a few, several £100 as a tip from some overseas guests. So
I'm definitely in the wrong job, Grant. I'm telling you now. I'm going to get my CV out there tomorrow.
That's why I was worried. If they stop tipping, I think you're going to have a lot of upset butlers, very unhappy, at the fact they're not going to be getting their tips.
What do you think then of this? It's not really a campaign, but it's certainly an article that's caused a lot of fuss here from the journalist called Chris Haslam, who says, don't leave tips. They demean the workers and they demean the customers. I mean, did you feel demeaned?
No, not at all. I mean, I think he's also said it would be better to increase the pay. I'm all for that. If he wants to increase, the pay is fantastic. But the tip is just such a tradition, and I don't want to say you expect it. Nobody should have expected it, but it's quite nice. It's almost as if the person you're looking after giving you a tip is almost as if they're saying, I'm really grateful for the service you provided, and it's a thank you. And that's originally, again, what tipping was about. It was about one individual thanking another for the service provided.
It is a bit of a minefield, though, who you tip. That text from Sarah who said, the money went to the cheapest paid staff who went in the kitchen, so all her hard graft wasn't recognised. And of course, they ended up, the people on the minimum wage ended up with the tips earning more than she did.
Well, see, that's a bit worrying because, again, in a private home, you would have, if a tip was given, say, to the butler, they might give a large tip and say, would you share it with the rest of the house staff? And you would. Well, I always, if I was asked to share the money, I would share it with the housekeepers and then the kitchens. But another thing that happens in private homes is these days they'll give tip money to the butlers, tip money to the housekeeping side of things, and also separately to the chefs. So it is divided. But unfortunately, in different establishments, it's not possible for you after your meal to walk around trying to find everybody to give them.
Yes.
You'd be there all night.
You would, wouldn't you?
Help wash
You
up.
really would. I tell you something that didn't work for me. This is I was talking about my barber in Bristol, who I always tip as a bit of an insurance policy to make sure I get a good haircut next time.
Very wise.
But a place I used to go to get my hair cut, they had at the till when you paid, they had a metal box with different slots in the top and the name of all the workers there. So you just pick, Jim or Fred or whoever it might be, and you'd put your couple of quid in or your £5 or whatever it was under that name. But it was only after a couple of visits that I realised that the money just went through the slot, but there were no dividers in there, so it was the same. So presumably they divided it all up after closing hours themselves, which rather defeated the point of having the name on the top of the slots.
It does, and also, I don't want to sound awful, but how do they know that it's going to be, whoever divides it up, how do they know that they're actually dividing it up fairly?
Well, I think they just kind of divide it up by 6 or whatever like that. So
well, hope so.
I thought I was giving a tip to an individual, but actually it was just going into a central pot. So I felt a bit bad about that, to be honest with you, and I wasn't quite so keen to tip then.
I mean, with my hairdresser, if I pen, they've got a little saucer on the side, and I'll put what I want on the saucer, and I know it goes to that individual, which is, well, that's a traditional way, isn't it? You always just put it next to whoever did your hair. Whereas you see these days, you're absolutely right. I've gone into different establishments and you see those boxes, but I kind of still, I'll still go up and actually hand the gratuity to the person directly.
Oh, wonderful word, gratuity. I love that
gratuity.
word. I can tell that's a lovely word.
That was the word. That was originally what you would say. It would be a gratuity you're given.
I'm loving this. This is brilliant. Lovely. And in etiquette circles, is it rude to give coins, and should you really give a note? Is that really what we should be doing?
No, I mean, it's not.
The minimum being a £5, obviously.
I've never heard anybody say it's rude to give coins. I mean, I think it's up to the individual what they wish to give somebody.
I suppose it's rude if you start counting it out in pennies and tuppence.
Yes, I mean, if you suddenly came up to me and you were going through your pocket and there was 2 pennies and 1 penny, I'd be thinking you'd probably better keeping that for yourself. If it's getting that desperate. But if you've got a couple of pound coins and you want to obviously pass that on, then fantastic. It's entirely up to your discretion as to what you think is the right gratuity.
All right, Grant, let's just go in my pocket now. Just throw a few at you right now. There we go. Is that enough?
Actually, I'm not too sure. I think we need to get the scales out.
The thing is, it's got to be coins, really, because those £5 notes just don't make any noise on the radio. It's a shocking thing.
And also, if somebody's, you don't want to get confused, because if somebody's slipping the note in your hand, obviously, you don't really know what you're getting, because, well, thankfully these days, sadly, you don't get the £1 notes anymore, do you? So, more than likely it's going to be a £5 note or a £10 note or above. Wherever it's a few coins, at least you can tell, can't you?
Yeah.
You have an idea what somebody's giving you.
Grant, you're such a good interviewee. I never raise your hopes, let's be honest. Good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us on BBC Radio Bristol.
Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. Grant, you can tell he's an etiquette expert, can't you? Grant Harrold, former royal butler to the Prince of Wales, no less.